What's going on, guys? The Stack here. This is a video about the meta going into Chicago and letting you guys know that we will be flying out to Chicago. So if you guys happen to see us there, stop us, talk to us. We'll be happy to talk to you. And if you want to jam a game, if there's time, more than happy to do that as well.
Yeah, so this video is going to kind of just go over like our thoughts pre-meta, pre-tournament for this meta, um, kind of where we're at, mentally for the tournament, what our goals are, and just trying to lay out the groundwork of what we're doing when we go to this Materia Cup in Chicago. So, yeah,
Yeah.
hope you enjoy that.
If you play Final Fantasy TCG, there's a very good chance that you've purchased cards from Nerd Labs already. Nerd Labs has nearly 2,000 completed sales in just over the last 11 months or so, with overwhelmingly positive feedback. We're on TCG Player, but just as a little hint, if you follow the link in the description, there's no price floor when prices are updated on a daily basis. Always happy to support the stack. Let's get back to the video.
If you go to tournaments and you look, there's Florida Materia Cup, then you have the collector store. There's not very many things that have been posted. Now, I'm also completely removed from FFDex, so I'd have to check here to see if there's been much more. Yeah, it looks like there's a few more, but not that many.
Yeah.
Chips.
So, truthfully, at this point, I think we're kind of in a spot where there's not too much to really talk about. There's just a little bit of groundwork to cover from basically recapping Florida. Obviously, we went through and we talked about all of the decks and kind of our thoughts on kind of placements and stuff like that. But I guess like my biggest thing for this video is like, is there any real change to the tier list? So after we recorded that off camera, I went through and edited these, and I think you were even a part of the editing of this.
Yeah.
So if we want to just kind of run through this really quick. So pre-Chicago, we've talked about the explanations before. This isn't necessarily like how good the deck is, but it's how often you're going to see it. Like what's the most expected decks would be the S tier decks. Then your like second most expected deck would be A, and then followed by B, and then Rogue tier. Rogue tier is something that you're not going to hardly see at all. You may not see one at all the entire day. But
Yeah.
so after Florida, obviously with a 4-color wool deck winning the tournament, I would say that Refugee Control, Giga Wool, and even Chaos Arc are going to be my top choices for what's going to be most represented in the room. There's multiple flavors of Refugee Control, whether it's 4-color good stuff, just literally just multi-element vomit in the deck, or Time Magic Barts. A lot of people are coming off of the Barts, but it is still a fairly quick way to get set up, and it covers some holes that 4-color good stuff can't by just being able to pull out 4-color wool turn 1. It's really good at doing that type of stuff. So I don't know. They're two totally different decks, but the same kind of end result. It's just how they get there. Giga Wool, the Tybus Warriors showed up a lot in Florida, a lot more so than the Adia and Seafer version. But there's various forms of 7 CP Wool where you've got like a mono water, you've got basically mono fire, you've got all kinds of stuff that you can do with that deck. And then Chaos Arc, Earth, mono Earth, water, mono water, Earth and or water, Earth lightning, mono lightning. I don't know. Chaos Arc's kind of a land of the unknown right now.
Yeah.
But I think that
Very good though.
yeah, Chaos Arc is one of those that's it's what keeps the other two decks in check right now. Refia control obviously being on 4 colors, chaos being reduced by every color that you have, being reduced by 8, being only a 3 drop that snatches a forward, and then being able to free cast arc to blow up whatever I don't want on the stack before you have to pass me something is a big deal. So it's very
Right.
economical. It's very meta check type of style deck in and of itself. So a lot of different flavors that you could play it in though. So it's kind of going to be, you kind of can't like tech for like mono earth chaos arc specifically because it can kind of go in multiple forms. So I think you tech for chaos and arc, maybe teching in some pieces that make your forwards not able to be chosen by summons. That, you know, obviously if you stop the break from arc, it stops the entire effect, so you don't have to discard. Stuff like that's really important, I think, right now. It seems like a lot of people are on this train of bodies are more important than summons, which I agree with. I think that's a valid logic there. So it's kind of like if you played cards that prevent your cards from being targeted by summons, how effective are you really being against the wider scope of the meta? Like, are you just teching for Chaos Arc? Maybe. You know, is your deck susceptible to that? Is Refia Control, would it be beneficial to just run, like, you know, some tech answers to where they can't be chosen by summons? Would it be more beneficial to be, you know, not chosen by abilities when Chaos enters, that he can't snatch something? But Chaos makes your opponent choose, so even then that doesn't help you at all. You basically, like, I think you tech for the arc, really. I think that's probably your better bet.
I think if you're playing 4-color good stuff, which I haven't seen nobody play it, which, I mean, it could be iffy, but playing the Chocobo to pop it back to your hand to draw a card, I think would be pretty good. Because constantly everybody's going to target Refia to get rid of, and if you just Chocobo Refia back to your hand, they're going to be like, damn.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the things that I was trying to tell Leon the other day, was it'd be nice because Chocobo is that in a storm deck, it's more proactive at getting you to your 6-7 casts per turn, but it's also such a defensive card. I mean, Althea was the same way, right? You could basically abuse Althea to make your stuff never be touched. Like, it was such a defensive based card at the same time that it worked in both respects. So I think that's interesting.
Then the arc would fizzle.
Right. Do you tech something that just removes your forward from the equation and makes their shit fizzle? That's interesting.
Well, I think that's just good in any situation for 4-color, just because it can be played, because most of the time they have wind to produce. But any deck you're going to play against, they're going to target Refia, no matter what. Or even Shantoto removing everything, you can at least save one of your Warrior of Lights.
Right.
But
that is interesting.
I think that would be interesting. Yeah, I think that would be a good tech, but I don't know if it's really feasible in that deck.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And I think there's a case to be made. So, like, the Time Magic Barts is an interesting situation because, in my opinion, it's not really like, it kind of leans heavily into the wind element, right? Because you need wind to be able to play your Barts, and you're already playing other Barts, and the only off-color Barts you're playing is the light Barts, which doesn't help your color fixing whatsoever. So being able to play a more wind-focused deck does actually help you achieve that, like, Chocobo tech, right? You could just play it because you're already very heavy in wind because you're already playing a ton of Bart's names. So that's interesting.
Yep.
I feel like Time Magic Barts kind of leans like wind plus one other color. Is it wind water? Is it wind earth? Something like that, because it kind of helps you be able to cast your Barts is important, but it also kind of takes up a lot of room. It takes up a lot of deck space to get there, but can you make that work in your benefit? That's interesting.
All right.
So, moving on to A tier decks. So, I do think Knights is kind of falling off a little bit, and I think, and this might be completely off base, but it feels like Hunter was kind of showing how good Knights could be, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like because Hunter has a very high caliber level of play, he's able to um, really showcase what the deck could do, and because he's a really good pilot, he could take the deck a long ways. And I'm not trying to downplay any of the other pilots by any means, but I feel like because he was on Magissa and Florida, Knights felt a lot more underrepresented in the top cut. I think we only had
Right.
one, which I actually have. So, we didn't. Oh, we saw one, two. We saw two in Swiss, which isn't. That's very minuscule, truthfully. But I mean, overall in the entire tournament, we had one, two. Yeah, we had two in top cut as well. So it seems a little bit less represented, but I'm not sure if that's just a side effect of, someone who had been highly represented in top cuts with it so far this year coming off the deck. I don't know that it makes it feel less prevalent in the room per se, but it's still kind of that big bad, like, boogeyman type of deck right now. It still does really well. You just kind of have to really be on the lookout for it. And any deck that can wipe out multiple forwards at once really has a good position against it, in my opinion.
Yep.
So then, mono decks really did make a larger presence in Florida. So I think I accidentally left Chaos on this slide, but it kind of does also fit in these decks. So like Mono Earth obviously was very prevalent in Florida, and the more and more I think about it, I really like Sam Tool's list only because it feels like Mono Earth, but it's not Mono Earth. Like it gives you access to retainers. It gives you access to what was that other Leo and Une? Like it gives you access to all these like off the wall things that just really like Sonon, Sophie. Like this felt way more my speed, like my style of deck. Like I like this. I like these one ofs. I like the off the wall interesting choices because it just feels like it is Mono Earth, but it's not Mono Earth at the same time, and that's interesting to me. And then we had obviously this Mono Earth, which is very similar, but Chaos Arc version, of course. Also really, really, really good. We had a Mono Water, we had Mono Fire. Like, Mono decks were very, very highly represented compared to Kansas. So, I do think that your big three are the Mono Earth, Mono Fire, and Mono Water. Those are going to be the big three that kind of show up and show out. But honestly, if we take a look at the local qualifier here, you can see Mono Water actually took a win at the local qualifier as well.
Nice.
And I know that bodes well for you. I know that's something that you've been thinking upon. I think
pondering.
I think Mono Water's in a good spot. I do think Sildra killed it. Yeah, whatever. But I think all mono elements kind of have a little bit of uniqueness to where they're rogue in a way, because they kind of all do their own thing and they do it really, really well. Like water filters, water draws, water. I mean, water has a ton of search in it. Something like this, Shinryu searches, Warrior Light searches, Lena draws, Glaciella blows stuff up, Realm bounces, Porum blanks things. Like, you got the protection from Yagrosh, you got Sarah into Gordon, you got Loprin, Alchemist, Astrologian. You've got all these standard units that just kind of do big things in a little way, if that makes sense.
Right.
And then you've got your late game, your Ash, your Levy. You've got these giant things. Oh, this is the other Lena. I am so sorry. That is not the draw Lena. The Lena that kind of makes 9 CP Levy free. You've got these things that really, they're powerhouse cards. They're just... I think it takes time to cook a mono element deck at the beginning of the format. It's probably not going to be as prevalent, but as we get further and deeper into the format, I think we're going to see a lot more.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, mono water, big deal, good stuff. 4 color. And mono earth. Hey, don't be rubbing on the mic, girl. People are going to hear you. 4 color. This is actually soirees, which I found interesting. Because we were talking about how soirees was needed to kind of be taken off the tier list in general because it's not as represented. But I still think it falls under kind of the 4 color good stuff category.
It's still good, for sure.
It just doesn't run Refia, right? It doesn't try to abuse Refia. It tries to beat you down. One thing that I do think that is really, really good right now and is probably overlooked to the point where if somebody dropped it, it would mess with you in a way that you're probably not expecting right now is 5 CP Cecil. It taxes the Arc. It taxes the Adia. It taxes the Refia. It taxes so much stuff right now that this card right here could make or break certain matchups if you're really smart about how you play it. Which actually, playing against Leon on Wednesday, one of the more interesting things that we saw were he had a board with 5 CP Cecil, 4 CP Men in Black, and Opus 15 Porum. And you want to talk about a very difficult board state to get through.
Yeah.
No matter what I did, if it was an effect that was going to benefit me at the beginning of the attack phase, he'd blank Porum. If it was going to be an effect that would benefit me for attacking, he would prevent me from doing that with Men in Black. And if it was an effect that I could target something to break down the wall, it was going to tax me with Cecil. It was just...
And then you got to choose which to get rid of.
Right. It was very, very interesting. And you needed multiple answers or you were going to lose. And oddly enough, I lost. So, soirees is interesting. We do have a Knights deck here. We have another 7 CP Wool. We have another Refia. And we have Mono Earth with Chaos Arc. So, there's a ton of the same stuff is kind of what I'm getting at here. Mono Water is kind of the big, I guess, outlier. But even then, like, we knew Mono Water was good. It's just underrepresented. So... I mean, that Tidus, man, the Limit Break Tidus is really what just sets it off. So, yeah, I think A tiers, I think that's a pretty solid place for them to be right now. B tiers, I think this is where the rest of your mono colors end up because I do think there's a place for mono wind. I think there's a place for mono ice and mono lightning. I just don't think that they're represented in the slightest right now. there's very few people playing mono wind. I think the tournaments that we have seen with mono wind, they're all teching some sort of limit break access to something else other than wind, because the wind limit breaks are kind of meh. Yuri especially is very niche, very very niche, and Ace is kind of hard to play off sometimes and make it beneficial, but it is good if you can get to that point. But it's definitely like a win more card. Taking in pieces for like 7 CP Odin so that you can cast Cloud if you end up drawing it. Like, that stuff's really good. I think Mono Wind's got a lot of power. It's just nobody's playing it. Mono Ice is in the same scenario right now. I think if you run Mono Ice aggro, you're good. If you run Mono Ice control, you're good. It's just, it's not going to be in the room very much. It's not something that I would say that you really have to tech for. Mono Lightning's kind of in the same spot. I've not seen a Mono Lightning list outside of Dragoons, and I don't know how long. Ice Lightning. I think Ice Lightning has a very good matchup against a lot of different things right now. It's only 2 elements, unless you're splashing in something like Rug or Chaos Arc if you're into that. So I think it does help against Chaos Arc, and I think your matchup into Knights is good. I think your matchup into anything not Refia is good, because obviously doling and freezing things and then letting Refia reactivate them doesn't do much for you. But I think if you played an Ice Lightning version, or probably just a Mono Ice that heavily focused on hand denial rather than like board state denial, I think it would be very interesting. I don't know exactly what that looks like. I don't know if that's more, more Whis and Nero. They're kind of slow at this point. Honestly, they're really expensive it's really hard to play those both out in one turn because of how much like hand you are losing at the same time. But then you could spin that into your own benefit, because now you play things that say, if you have less than 2 cards, if both players have less than 2 cards, stuff like that, like the 1 CP Lightning, those very specific cards. Like, could you build a package around that? In Opus 22, we got a lot of cards that say if your opponent has 2 or less cards, if both players have 2 or less cards, stuff like that. So it's very interesting. I think it's got a spot. It's just it's one of those it showed up kind of big in the beginning of the format, but it was quickly overshadowed, I think. And I think truthfully, Ice Lightning 7 CP Wall is kind of like what it eventually kind of transformed into. Playing the Zeromas, playing the Adia, the Seifer, the Alcids, the Remedies. You're essentially playing Ice Lightning, and then you just play the Gilgamesh. So, I mean, that's kind of like what it eventually turns into. But I do think that the traditional Ice Lightning with Alcids, Zeromas, Rufus. I mean, truthfully, you could just play Rufus, Rug, Alcids, Zeromas, and you've got a very strong, like, core set of cards right there. That's a very strong package.
Right.
And then last we have the Rogue tier, which is kind of just like everything else. We've talked about Dragoons, we've talked about Scions, we've talked about 13. I think this is where you kind of like have the freedom to do whatever you want, and you just find something that's kind of unfair, and you just kind of do it, but then you have some small answers for everything else that's like big in the meta. What are your answers to 4-color wall? What are your answers to Chaos Arc? What are your answers to Knights? Those are kind of still like your thought-provoking questions that you need to ask yourself in this realm. So it's very, very cool. There's a lot of different options, obviously, in Rogue tier, but this is stuff that you're not going to... I highly doubt you're going to run into Dragoons. Like, I would say like 5% chance of running into Dragoons is probably where I would say it's at. Probably less than that. So, I don't know.
Well, unless you sit across from me.
Yes. You gotta be careful with Oscar. So I guess one thing that I definitely don't want to give away what I'm playing, because if people are listening that are going to end up against me, I do think at this point I have it narrowed down to two possible decks that I'm going to take. I think it'll just depend on like a lot of testing over the next couple of days, but there's been some interesting things that I've started to put together. I don't know that I'll have enough. So this was my take on a Siren list that I think it topped some local qualifiers, and then it did show up in Florida, but I don't remember how far they ended up getting. But this is essentially like a water, lightning, earth style. It's very, very off the wall. But like Siren, Seymour, and Shinryu are your only forwards. This is my rogue pick. Like if I was gonna play like just the most off the wall shit, this is what it would be. So like obviously your Shinryu searches for like whatever package you're looking for. The summons aren't as like important in terms of like you gotta have them. Like obviously it's good to have Mist Dragons in certain matchups. It's good to have Ixions in certain matchups. But the main shtick of the summons is kind of to help just fuel the Seymour. So when he enters, if you have 3 or more summons in your break zone, break it. You choose a forward and break it. Then you can tap him, remove 6 summons, and he deals your opponent damage. So it's a very passive way to deal your opponent damage while like they try to target your stuff, and Siren just basically, there's a very, very, very low chance that you're going to hit a forward if you reveal off of Siren. And then like obviously the Shinryu special is good for board wiping your opponent. You have Chadley to be able to add forwards back to your hand. Kryl to add back your summons. Thornton to be able to search whatever you want. Tyra to be able to search basically whatever forward you want. Rydia to get your Seymours. Shantotos to help wipe the board. Mind Flayers to help snatch your opponent's stuff. Just really, really, really stupid, monotonous game plan, but it seems so fun to play for me. Seems really fun.
Yeah.
I did heavily play Mono Ice for the last like week or two. Trying to kind of figure out like is there anything that is kind of like left on the table from the last few sets that could be good right now. I know a lot of the lists are playing get to 5 backups as quickly as possible. This deck was kind of a cross between like I want to go fast when I draw that, but I can also play slow if I want to. So like you have your Rug, your Rufus, that's just a dumb combo in general. But then like there's like a nice little 6 package in here with Locke, Celeste, you have the Kefka, you have the Setzer. These cards that kind of are impactful in their own way. And basically the Rufus can grab the Reno, the Rude, stuff like that. You have your Laswell, your Charlotte. It's like all these like small little packages that kind of go together, but it didn't really pan out for me. Definitely not something that felt like I was like, oh, this is really, really good. And then, oh yeah, the Warriors of Dullness. I'm still waiting on these cards to come in. I think this is going to be hilarious to play. Earth Lightning Warriors of Dullness. So basically abusing the fact that Diana can just dull things down. and that Zach pings things for 5k whenever they do. And then even if they like don't die, that's fine. I just get to attack twice with Varian. So having access to Gadaj to dull things down at the same time, I think this could be really interesting. It's really goofy. It's kind of more of a fun deck, but rogue decks are rogue for a reason. They kind of break through and show people what's up.
Yep.
So I don't know what's been your main like thought process going into this tournament. Like, what have you been testing to try to figure out what your end result deck is going to be?
I'm not gonna lie, I haven't done hardly any testing. I've been super busy with something called life. But I am making time to go to Chicago. And let me tell you, if I lose my first 2-3 rounds, I'm gonna stick it out and keep playing because I'm flying all the way to Chicago to play Final Fantasy.
Very true.
I'm not gonna drop.
Yes.
So I know a lot of people drop early after they realize they're not gonna make Top Cut, but I mean, I like the game so much that I like to continue playing. And meeting cool people as well. So I'm gonna play it. I think I'm just probably gonna end up sticking to what I know. Play something of variants of that, and just hoping for the best.
Yeah.
To be honest,
Yeah,
life has been busy.
Yeah, I feel like both of ours has kind of gotten out of hand lately. My boss having to be out on leave for a while and me having to pick up some of his duties, and I mean I ended up working all day yesterday.
Damn.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm going into Chicago with a few goals. I want to be positive in terms of win-losses after 8 rounds of Swiss. This is a very large tournament. 200 plus people, I believe, is what was communicated. I think that's right. But I know for sure it's 8 rounds. It's going to be very taxing for 8 rounds because you're looking at that's probably closer to like 8 or 9 hours total worth of like playing with the lunch and all that included. So we're going to be like dealing with cards for 8 or 9 hours. So I'm just, my ultimate goal is to just be positive at the end of the day. I just want to have more wins than losses. Making top cuts great, but to me it's not what it's about. I like coming up with deck ideas and I like testing them. I feel like I like to create, and that's what I like to do. It's not that I'm a great executor. I'm a great architect is kind of how I look at it. I don't want to say I'm a great architect. I am an architect. My buildings fall all the fucking time, so don't live in one. But in general, like I don't have like ambitions to be like top 4. I don't have ambitions to, like get any kind of crazy invites to Nats or nothing. Would it be cool? Yeah, of course. But like that's just not my end goal. My end goal is a little different because I don't really care about winning. At the end of the day, I don't think I'm that competitive. Like I'm not a competitive type of person. I'm just a tester. Like I love to test. I love to solve the puzzles on why the things that I built didn't work. So it's a little different for me.
Right. And it's always nice playing people that you don't see every time you play, because like our locals is like a niche group. It's small, and as you play with those people, you learn their play styles. You learn they like to hold certain cards. You kind of know what you're expecting, and it's nice going into a tournament playing against people that you've never played before, and just seeing how you actually do.
Yeah, I think my one of my main builds that I've been working on so far this format is an Earth Lightning. I mean, it's essentially just Earth Lightning. I mean, and I'll admit this is one of the two that I'm thinking about taking. But I built it very specifically to, go up against the meta before Kansas was there, and I tweaked it after Kansas for Florida, and then after Florida, I have tweaked it for what I think kind of does decent now. There's a lot of different things in here that I picked specifically for the meta, and this is just something that I don't feel like does good at my local, simply because no one's playing meta. We're playing Cat 4, Warriors of Darkness, Earth Water Monsters, or sorry, not Earth Water, Fire Water Monsters, Lightning Water Scions, and Loop
Fun
decks.
stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun rogue type of stuff, and this is built to go up against a room full of meta slaving decks. Like that's really why it's here. So it's just, I don't know. It's a little different. I do think it'd be nice. I don't know that I have the balls to take this truthfully, because it's so untested against like meta relevant stuff. I feel like I need a deck that I'm more comfortable with, because I don't know what to do with, a Wall 7, an Axstar, and a Zeromus on board when they already have 7, colors in the break. Like, obviously I know to miss Dragon the break, but like, what do I do against that board state? I don't know. I don't know what the best decision is, because I've not been put in that position yet. And it's going to be kind of hard to learn that as I go. I don't feel like that's going to give me the best possible chance at achieving my goal. And like I said, my goal is just to be positive. If I choose a deck that I can just kind of just play how I like to play it, and it kind of does its own thing, then I feel like I have a better chance. But
Right.
either way, our locals is growing. I mean, in the last couple of months, we have gotten some people that have been interested. I think the Yu-Gi-Oh guy that came and played with us, he seemed to enjoy the game. It's just that that Yu-Gi-Oh ban list kind of threw him right back into his home game, and that's perfectly fine. But
Right.
there's a lot of different stuff happening at locals. Alpha Clash, Lorcana's still there. There's a lot of new things that are coming out that people are, wanting to try and wanting to get into. So, it kind of takes time away from Final Fantasy, which is to be expected. It's just,
Yeah.
it's one of those things you kind of power through and go into a tournament blind that you're flying, 300 or 400 miles away to see.
Yeah.
But, anyways, I guess ultimately the point of this video is to kind of just go over, the tier list, which we've done. I guess I would want to know, what's everyone's thoughts going into the meta? Do you think that we're in a solved meta right now? Do you think that there are the big three, that you just kind of play one of the big three for your best chances to win? I don't know. I really don't. I think that these three are going to definitely be the most represented in the room in some sort of fashion. But don't know what we're really going to go up against. One of the biggest tournaments ever. I think when they were talking about it, there was one other tournament that's had more entrants than this one in the history of Final Fantasy. So that's a really big deal. That's huge.
Yeah. I hope everybody shows, though. It'd be cool. All those people in one place.
And, kudos to tournament organizers here, because, they could have just said, all right, well, our tickets sold out in 58 seconds. Guess we're going to have a full house. But they went out and they, scouted extra, venue space, and they did a lot of legwork to keep the tournament growing. And that speaks volumes to, the people that are in this community. That's a big deal to me, So
yeah, for sure.
Anyways, I think that's pretty much the gist of what I had to say going into Chicago. My goals, my thoughts, and try to, I guess, give some opinion on where I think the meta is. So, did you have anything else going into this tournament?
No. I just hope to do positive as well. Meet some cool people at the end of the day, hopefully. For the first 2 days we're down there in Chicago. We're gonna ride around Chicago and check that out, and then after that it's game time. So
Yeah.
we're gonna be playing.
Yep. So if you do watch our videos and you do see us, more than happy to say hey and chit chat and talk to people. I know that we're kind of planning on talking to Shantotocast at some point. We had talked to them at the Winter Cup, and they were pretty excited to hear that we were coming up to Chicago. This will be kind of their home territory, so that's cool. I like that aspect. I like to see people and network. I think that's a fun thing to do. So if you see
Of
us,
course.
we probably will not recognize you, but if you recognize us, you can say hey. Did you? I don't want to say that we did something, but did you, by chance, do the thing that we talked about?
I am working on it.
Okay.
I've got to drop it off Monday and hope that I can get them.
Okay. So we possibly may have a little bit of a surprise at Chicago, and yeah, hopefully that pans out and we can do something to kind of give back to you guys. If you do see us and you know who we are, come ask us about the surprise. that may be a bad idea if it doesn't pan out, but we'll try to think of something. But all right,
Yeah, we'll make it right.
Yeah, that's kind of it for today,
We'll get
guys.
you information.
Yeah. So other than that, I think that's it for me. Really appreciate you guys listening. Hope to see you guys at Chicago, and hope you guys have some good days of cards coming up, and hope you meet your goals, because that's all I'm wanting to do is meet my goals. That's all I want. Meet my goals.
Yeah, of course.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.
See ya.